So during this web cafe series, we are focusing on hidden harms in the West Midlands. So we are pleased to be partnering with organisations and survivors based primarily in the West Midlands, but also nationally to look at harmful practices affecting communities in these areas, sharing learning around support, best practice and prevention. And this series is funded by the West Midlands PCC, for which we are very grateful. So today we have expert speaker Darius Smith, who will be speaking to us about the importance of RSE and conversations about misogyny. So Darius is an advocate for suicide prevention, domestic abuse education, and mental health, and is part of the Make It Mandatory campaign, lobbying the government to extend relationships and sex education to age 18. Darius uses his platform to cultivate permission to have open, authentic, brave, and safe conversations about masculinity, patriarchy, and misogyny. So, without further ado, I am going to pass over to Darius. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dot. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I really do appreciate it. As Dot said, I'm from Make It Mandatory. We're going to go through kind of who I am, who Make It Mandatory is, why we exist, and a couple of other things that we have done in our campaign to date, and some really exciting things that are on the horizon for us as well. So you're probably sat here wondering, who's this random black guy with a pink jumper on talking to us about misogyny? Well, my name is Darius. I also go by Victory for You online. And I do lots of different things in lots of different spaces. So I'm a youth worker. I currently work for Oxfordshire Youth. I'm a fashion creative, a dancer, writer, content creator, and as of last year, well, actually no, as of quite a few years ago, we've become award-winning campaigners with Make It Mandatory. So much of what I do and kind of things that will naturally come up in the session are rooted in my faith. I'm a Christian, so which is quite interesting how we're having conversations about misogyny, and a lot of what I do is also bring those conversations into church spaces and kind of challenging certain things of what people do and saying like, actually, maybe we can approach this differently. Um, as Dot said, suicide prevention is a big kind of thing for me, as well as domestic abuse education and mental health. I myself, I'm a sexual assault survivor, so there's like a real kind of tangible and real reason why I'm involved in this work, and trying to be in a space where I am trying to be as possible, fully authentically myself, which allows hopefully the permission for other young people, specifically young men, to be their authentic selves as well. So yeah, I show up in spaces wearing a pink jumper. I'm currently wearing sparkly trousers. It's just a fun way to exist, and it also challenges different stereotypes that people have. So, who is Make It Mandatory? Okay, so we are a multi-award winning campaign group of young people and survivors. So our founder, who Kate mentioned earlier, Faustine, um, this campaign started after she endured some pretty horrific things in a relationship. And then she realized that actually there was nothing taught to her in the age bracket between kind of 16 to 18 where all of this was happening. She did some research and found out that there was actually a loophole in the system, that RSE, so relationship sex education, only had to be mandatory up to the age of 16. But what we found was the most vulnerable age group, based on ONS data in 2024, to receive all of this domestic abuse is 16 to 19-year-olds. So we kind of question, like, so why are they being excluded from this education altogether? So we kind of pushed and pushed and pushed, went back and forth to Parliament, 10 Downing Street, and we started a petition. That petition started, I think, almost 4 years ago now. Actually, I've just realized that number is now wrong. We currently have over 106,000 signatures as of this week. And we are currently backed by the NSPCC, Women's Aid, Everyone's Invited. Our partner, the Sex Education Forum, has supported us through a lot of things. We recently went to Parliament again with Amnesty Feminist and did an event there, which went really, really well and was really successful. And that brought together brilliant people across the violence against women and girls space, education, um, all together to stand and say, like, actually, this education is necessary for these young people. So all what we do is about building safer spaces, safer communities for young people, and ultimately saving their lives because we believe that education really does have the power to save lives. So like a really quick introduction to our team. So Faustine, who isn't here today, but our founder, and she focuses mainly on policy. Myself, Darius, I'm media and press and also facilitation. Aoife, who is our strategist, she is absolutely incredible, and Pippa is our content creator. We initially started as a group of 8 friends, and then due to different things that happened to people, like people went to uni, people, got different jobs, which meant they had time taken away from them. That's why we're now a team of 4. All of what we do is voluntary. We're not paid for this at all, but it's something that we are all extremely passionate about, and that's kind of what keeps us going. And as it says on the screen, before we were campaigners, we were actually friends. So it's really important to us that we center our friendship in what we're doing, and we're really kind of caring and supportive of one another. If something's too much, we always do our best to step in and support with one another because we are aware that this work is really, really heavy. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a quiz for you. You're going to take like a minute. If you want to kind of use the chat box, this is like a true or false question. So if you want to just put like the number and then either T or F, whether you think it's true or false. So the first one is 1/5 of 16 to 19-year-olds didn't learn to recognize abusive relationships. Number 2 is most say school is their main source for pornography information. Number 3, 87% think that RSE should help them spot unhealthy relationships. Number 4, over 50% said they learned enough about healthy relationships. Number 5, RSE continues automatically into colleges. And number 6, nearly a quarter of 16 to 19-year-olds didn't learn what to do if sexually assaulted. Um, so yeah, just take a minute, have a little think, and then we will reveal the answers. This is like something that we've also done in a recent presentation. So we recently were up in Leeds at the IDAS conference, and we also challenged them with these same questions. So I wanted to bring it here and see if anything was similar, if there was a different kind of understanding of RSE down here in the south. I should probably have like got some like kind of elevator music for this bit. Don't have that. You just hopefully have like the dulcet tones of my voice for now. Cool. So we're going to keep this going for another 30 seconds, and then we will reveal the answers. It's really lovely to see all of your answers just kind of appearing in the chat. Okay, so another 10 seconds.
Darius, if you would like me to decode, then please let me know. But I'm
Yeah,
having a look and I think you might be better placed.
yeah, no, that's all good. Okay, so we're gonna go to the answers now. I think there's quite a lot of, so the first one, pretty much everyone in the chat is saying true. The second one, the majority of people are saying false. For question 3, the majority of people are saying false. 4, the majority of people are saying false also. Um, Number 5, there's a lot of false for number 5. And for number 6, there's quite a lot of true. So let's reveal the answers. So 20% reported not receiving that teaching at all. So that's number one. So anyone who said true, you're correct. Congratulations. Unfortunately, you get no prizes for that. So for the question two around pornography, that is false. The main place where young people are finding this information is online, on social media, on the pornography websites, instead of school. Um, Number three, overwhelmingly, youth respondents said this 87%. So to like that they didn't that they should be receiving education around unhealthy relationships and what they look like. Number four is false. So 54% said they didn't learn enough about healthy relationships throughout their education, which when you take a moment to think about that, that's actually really worrying. So if you think over half of all young people leaving our education system who have received kind of what will have meant to have received RSE and are leaving school knowing nothing about healthy relationships and what they should look like. So number five is false. That is actually part of why we exist. So there is no statutory RSE for FE colleges, sixth forms. There is no standard for that to happen. And the final one, number six, is true. So 18 to 23% said they didn't learn anything about sexual assault or grooming. Yes, so thank you for kind of taking part in that. If you didn't know any of those things, maybe like write some stuff down because these are quite important stats to be aware of. So the reason why this is so focused on education is quite based in this quote by Aisha Gill. If you want to take a little read of that, and I'll talk around it. But when we give young people access to education in all forms of what that could mean, it allows them to develop critical thinking, allows them to understand empathy. So, if you think of history lessons, when you have time to think about the historical context of our country or the historical context of different, civilizations, that allows you to gain empathy for people who might be different than you or who might come from other places. This is very similar with RSE education. When this is done well, it allows young people to enter that space, challenge ideas that they may have, for example, misogyny, and move forward not repeating those patterns. So because misogyny and patriarchy, they are systems, they exist naturally, well, not naturally, they exist in our society because of us as human beings. We have kind of continued this process, and we kind of haven't had a time, unlike now, where there have been many people saying, actually, we need to do something different. So as Aisha Gill said, like particularly for women providing the chance to develop fully one's dignity and potential. And this is why we want this to exist for young people. So the majority of kind of 16, 17, 18 year olds, that's a time when they're possibly getting into their first serious relationship. If they're entering that relationship not knowing anything of how to deal with that, and the only information they've got is from pornography, from TV shows, from films, from Andrew Tate, then we are looking for a generation of young people who are going to have very broken relationships, and that's not what we want. So I believe, and many people believe, I'm sure we all believe in this group today, that misogyny against women and girls is everyone's responsibility. For far too long, there have been so many conversations around, oh, it's a women's issue. It's like it's got nothing to do with men. Like actually, it has everything to do with men. It has everything to do with all of us. A lot of conversations that are happening right now. Recently this week, I think the start of this week, David Gandy was on Loose Women talking about positive representations for young men and also like how we should not be misogynist in this society. It's really great to see different positive role models for masculinity kind of existing in this space and kind of fighting against this system of patriarchy. So the reason why education is great is it provides a space for empathetic disruption. So instead of it happening, out on the streets in a place where it might be less safe to have those conversations, it allows a space for critical thinking and to kind of allow young people to realize that actually the thing that you might think has been really normal for a long period of time might not be. So I think we've all heard the phrase "boys will be boys." It's a phrase I personally hate. It's something that was used against me when I was a child whilst going through some pretty horrific things, and I was just told that, well, boys will be boys. Like, they're gonna harm me. They're gonna do this. They're gonna do that. And I'm like, no, that's not normal. So boys will be what they are taught, and boys will be what they are role modeled. So if we are role modeling to young people that misogyny is okay and it's, fine to be violent towards women, then that's what will be repeated. If we are actively standing and saying, actually, what our grandparents did, what our parents might have done, that is not the right way to be. So to kind of suppress a woman's emotions or, not allow her to leave the house or constantly checking her phone, that is not normal behavior. That is, oppressive and abusive. And being able to role model, have people like David Gandy, Lewis Wedlock, myself, different men who are trying to do that work, that inner work on themselves to make sure that the space that they exist in, that misogyny is not allowed to be there and it's not allowed to have a comfortable seat within that space. And misogyny harms us all. So a little bit later, I'm going to talk through some little things that I've seen within my practice. Um, One of the things that we've learned with being in these groups is young men often need things to be reframed to them. So I was in a session recently where, and also trigger warning because it was quite misogynist, what I'm about to say, we're talking about women's bodies in really derogatory ways, talking about, them being unintelligent and having big breasts and all of these kind of things. And I stopped them in their tracks and was like, hold up, we don't talk about women like this in this space. That's not what we do. This is not what you're here for. And being able to reframe it to them and say, like, how would you feel if someone said that to your mother? How would you feel if someone said that to your sister or like a woman in your life that you love? And often they sit back and it's like, actually, I wouldn't like that. So why would you say it to someone else? Cool. So the facts, the stats, there are lots of them, but I've just picked out a couple. So much of our campaign is driven by data, and what we have found out. So, from 2020, so the wonderful pandemic year that we all got to enjoy together, that was terrific. That was the first time where compulsory RSE was mandated in the curriculum for under 16s only. So, before that time, it was not mandatory at all for 11 to 16-year-olds to receive this education. It was the choice of the school whether they did it or not. So that means that we're now in 2025. We have just seen the first generation of young people from year seven all the way through to year 11 receive some form of RSE in their education, which is great. But what we are concerned about, as it says on the screen, is give 16 to 18-year-olds the sex education they want and need. Young people are asking for this. They are asking for this education so that they can move further into their lives in a way that is healthy and safe. Um, so what we are asking the government to do is extend that, is extend it to 18. And just imagine all of the young people get to the end of this academic year and then they're able to continue for the next 2 years with RSE, having these conversations around domestic abuse, coercive control, what healthy relationships are, what unhealthy relationships are. Think how much better their relationships could be. So we are seeing 2.3 million people age 16 or over experiencing domestic abuse in England or Wales. That is a huge number. In the world of economics and our government, the thing that often motivates them is money. We spend so much on crisis care as a country. If we could move, not even all of it, just some of that money to preventative work, that would hopefully help to save in the area of this crisis care because the work would already be done. It's about kind of helping to stop the harm before it even happens. As I mentioned earlier, 16 to 19-year-olds experience the highest rates of all forms of domestic abuse compared to any other age groups. That includes economic abuse, that includes sexual abuse, all forms of abuse they are receiving higher than any other age group. 19 million adolescent girls will experience physical or sexual intimate partner violence by the time they turn 20 years old. That is horrific. We should not be comfortable being in a society where that is like a normalized stat. And the fact that that's for some people, that is just a statistic. It's not, they can't tangibly understand how many people that is quite scary. The Sex Education Forum, who I mentioned earlier, who are an amazing partner, revealed that 54% of young people reported that healthy relationships weren't covered enough or at all in their education. And as I've said, it ends at 16. It ending at 16 is not helpful. It means that you're getting a level of education, it's just stopping. So if you're not getting it from school, or you're not getting it from, a youth club or somewhere like that, where are these young people getting this information from? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples from my practice that I've realized over the last couple of years. Um, so, as I said earlier, this is an education is an effective disruption for young people to stop these cycles of harm, misogyny, and abuse. We've actually seen it time and time again, not just us at Make It Mandatory, but other organizations. There's an organization that we know quite well called Let Me Know, LMK. They go into schools and do some of this work. They have a board of young people who also kind of facilitate and do this work also, and they have noticed the similar thing. So, when we started off this campaign, one of the first things that we did was we wanted to test if it was even possible, if it even made sense. So we went into two different sixth forms. Um, one in Oxfordshire and one in London. And we ran the same kind of course, what we felt like the government could roll out to other schools. It not attacked, it went through all of the different forms of domestic abuse, coercive control, what it looks like, what it can present like. And we use different things from films, TV shows to help to elaborate that point. One of the clips that we used was from a Twilight film, and this was part of the presentation when we was talking about the romanticization of stalking in films. So we were talking about Twilight, You, all of these other things that we watch on TV and we watch and we're gripped to, but actually, what is that planting within us? So we showed a clip from Twilight, and there were some boys at the back of our class who were like, "Well, of course I want to know who my girlfriend is. Like that's completely normal." So I turned to them and was like, "Hold that thought. Let's watch this clip, and I'll come back to you." They watched the clip, the whole class watched the clip, and everyone kind of felt really awkward. You could see like their hair standing up and them just feeling like really uncomfortable by it. I went back to those boys and they were like, actually, no, that's not normal. That's not a normal thing to do at all. And in that moment, I think it allowed them to realize that potentially either things that they've seen or things that they might have been doing is not normal behavior. So something that I think all of us probably know is that friction, when we have it in those spaces, no matter who it's with, often can signal some kind of progress. It's touched something. It's kind of awakened something in them that they feel uncomfortable with. So recently I've been working with a group of young men, and it's been very interesting. So the actual project itself is about fundraising, but we're using that project to talk to them about misogyny, racism, privilege, why they are very hyper patriarchal and why that feels comfortable to them, and how to be authentic men instead of, what they think they should be. And that has allowed for some friction. In a recent session, after doing this work and talking to them about privilege and saying, misogyny is not what you should be doing, we had some misogynist things come out in our session, which is what I referred to earlier. That was a shock, but this has allowed us to kind of pause, reframe, come back together and say to them, like, actually, this is not acceptable behavior anywhere. Like, I will not accept it. Your teachers won't accept it. No one around you will accept it. And it's about being brave enough to say to them, actually, no, instead of just allowing them to continue in the thought pattern that boys will be boys. And also, role modeling and prevention is needed, both of those hand in hand. So, the education being provided, all of the prevention, the education being provided, and different role models existing. So, we know, and there have been many conversations around things like adolescence, things like people like Andrew Tate, people like David Goggins, who all managed to take the insecurities of young men, allow them to kind of feel like feminism is the thing that's attacking them instead of it being patriarchy that's actually attacking them, and then allow them to spew this misogyny that's continued from generations past, and it's continuing in this younger generation, which is really, really scary. But we are seeing a huge wave of not just men, women, so many incredible people who are standing up saying, actually, no, we all need to be better. One of those people is Lewis Wedlock, who I mentioned earlier. He has written this incredible book called Masculinities in Schools. Whether you're working in schools or not, it's a great read. He's a friend of mine, so he does some really amazing work. But I would definitely recommend giving that a read, specifically if you are in spaces where you're facilitating, whether it is kind of just with young men or also with like a mixed gender classroom. That's definitely a great read because it might help you to understand potentially how to kind of balance things in that space. Another big thing for Make It Mandatory is being intersectional. We believe that intersectionality, education, and prevention all have to go together. Um, Misogyny is not received the same way by every single person. So, for example, a white woman will experience misogyny different to a black woman. A trans woman would experience misogyny different to a disabled woman, but it's all still misogyny. But if we are looking at it through an intersectional lens, then that will help us to understand these young people better. It is the same when we're talking about domestic abuse. Domestic abuse affects different communities differently. So, and also patriarchy affects different communities differently. So, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of my challenging exists in church spaces. So, I go into my own church, previous churches I've been in, and question, say, like, well, why are we doing this? Why can't we have female leaders? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? There is literally nothing in the Bible that says we can't do this at all. So being able to challenge and challenge really compassionately because they've understood that it's always been this way. So therefore, we'll just continue in that way. Same with lots of other things, and that's why it needs to be approached intersectionally and compassionately. Empathy and intersectionality, as I've just been saying. So I think we're all fairly aware of the landscape that a lot of young people are existing in. So it's confusing. So nudes are normal just to send them and that to be expected. Porn is everywhere. Like you can literally, unfortunately, be on Instagram and find pornography and it's readily available. And it's pretty terrifying that that is a thing. There have been studies done that have shown that you can create an account and say that you're a 16-year-old young man, and with a couple of swipes, you'll be on misogynist content, you'll be on red pill content, you'll be on all of this hypersexual content as well, which is not great for those eyes to be seeing at all. Everyone feels like under this pressure to make everything really Instagrammable and perfect, but they're actually not knowing how to do that. Not that relationships need to be perfect, but they see things online. They see, previously when they were together, the Kim Kardashian and Kanye, when they were together, they were like, oh my goodness, I want a relationship like that. But they didn't understand that that relationship was really abusive. And that's kind of the kind of reality that we're living within. Recently, the Voice of Boys report came out and it showed that two of the biggest worries of parents is patriarchy and misogyny and pornography. And also, young men are showing us that they are wanting to have these conversations, but they just don't know how. They're wanting to have these conversations about misogyny and patriarchy, but they don't have the language for it. So this is where we come in as Make It Mandatory, this pathway to prevention. We are not the only preventative measure. There are so many amazing preventative measures that exist, and it's about us all working together to support and help young people to live healthier, happier lives. We believe that education is not the only answer, but it's a big answer to this question. So investing in prevention is a must. Prevention, prevention, prevention is something that we talk about all the time and Make It Mandatory, and we always will. If we're looking at prevention, this starts at talking to everyone around the hidden harms of misogyny and how it seeps into our society, how it is just there. It's talking about patriarchy and how, the belief that men have to be one way and women have to be another way is so restricting. And that means when anyone exists outside of that, we see specifically with young men, misogyny and homophobia coming together into one because they're attacking what they deem to be feminine, but then they're also spouting homophobic views as well, which again is not acceptable. So early education helps all young people to recognize the red flags before harm can be normalized. This also allows this evidence to be shown that I've started to share in this session, and for them to be aware of potentially if they're in areas where perpetrators might be, and for them to be able to hopefully avoid that. And it also teaches them empathy, respect, consent, and interrupts the abuse before it starts. So, I've talked a lot and I'm coming to an end now. So, how can you support our campaign? We are doing quite a lot at the moment. So, we are currently in the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And what we are hoping to do is by the 10th of December to have 1,000 emails sent to the Department of Education. Um, there's a QR code on the screen now, which within that you can have access to our email template, which you can send to the Department of Education. All of the instructions are in there. We're really, really, really trying to push for this to become policy. We are currently within the Children and Wellbeings Bill. And yeah, there's lots of other partners working on it with us. So the End Violence Against Women Coalition, the Sex Education Forum, and Brooke, all working together with Make It Mandatory to make this possible, along with lots of other partners and lots of other people who have signed our petition. Also, you can work with us. So our email and everything will be at the end. So take a picture if you want to get in contact. And lastly, sign and share our petition. Our petition will be on the next slide. So we're currently at 106,000 signatures. We would love to continue to push that further and further and further and further. So yes, thank you very much. As I said, please do get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you. You can find us on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can head to our newly created website, which was brilliantly created by Ether. Or if you have any questions, you can email us at makeitmandatorycampaign@gmail.com. And also you can scan and sign and scan the petition that's on screen. And lastly, a really big bit of news, which literally came out yesterday. We are a part of a documentary which is on Channel 4, and it will be on TV on the 18th of December. We're not sure the timings yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be evening. It's called Controlled. Can I Trust My Partner? It is currently live on Channel 4 Documentaries YouTube and also on their player as well. So if you want to scan that QR code that's on screen now, you can get access to that also. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope you've learned something from today.
Thank you so much, Darius. That was awesome. And Make It Mandatory have our wholehearted support. Good luck with the campaign. So, this session has really highlighted how important it is to tackle misogyny and patriarchy as these systems underlie harmful practices and abuse issues. There are so many things that you have said today that have stood out to me that I would love to speak on, ask questions about. But one thing which really stood out was you said boys will be what they are taught and what they are role modeled. And I just wanted to say such a big thank you for being a brilliant male role model. Super, super important. Thank you.